Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Is it plausible to go insane or crazy if you live with someone who is mentally ill at times? I feel like I'm crazy for tolerating all this bombardment of psychodrama. Look, I do believe there are spiritual forces that can cause others to be mentally weak and subjugated to actions. However, constantly I'm walking on eggshells, metaphorically speaking. I do realize sometimes people are just insane. However, there has to be some nefarious reasoning. Could it be that the person has inner demons that take over? I've witnessed their facial structure has changed. I brushed it off as my imagination. Again, I am a skeptic. However, I do believe spiritual possession can occur in rare cases. Now I tried saying prayers others have prayed, tried blessing the place, holy oil and holy water. Nothing works. The person still has delusions of seeing spirits. However, I do notice when I read any scriptures out, they start screaming like if it's torturing them. It's weird. I feel like trying to move far away, but given the current state of things, I'm stuck at the moment trying to find a solution of leaving. But for some reason, I keep thinking about the Book of Job. I am not very religious. I do have some faith, however, I am just conflicted in general as a human being. I am trying my best to survive and maintain my own sanity while facing dark times. There have been strange occurrences like items dropping for no reason, or something that happened to someone who visited was an item that just fell flat on the floor. Normally not as clumsy, but constantly items fall down, even when there is no motion or movement. I hate to say it could be some spiritual activity. I guess what I'm saying, if a person keeps trying to argue, could it be a spirit trying to feed on the negative emotions of others? I could be not doing anything and this chaos comes out of nowhere. I remember learning nefarious spirits feed off hatred, anger, negative emotions. I try my best to not let things get to me. Try to make every excuse in order to have positivity.
Is this a family member?
Sadly, yes, I am conflicted with staying and going. I lack the self-care, that I am falling apart at the seams. I feel a desperation but realize I cannot allow myself to fall down. I feel like I am being tormented. However, I am doing a good job of not going bonkers. But I just feel a lot of hurt. I cannot scream or cry. I am just in a state of never showing weakness. I question, is this a test? Maybe I am just being tested. Maybe I just need to clear my mind. I do get nightmares at night. However, as twisted as the nightmares I get, I don't wake up screaming like I would have. I just accept fate if I can fight back. I do if I can't. It's like I am powerless too. The person tells me that some spirit is trying to hurt me. It's like, what the heck, come on now, I never killed anyone. If anything, I am just an introspective person. I try to avoid issues or trouble, try to keep peace. I do recall I helped an old acquaintance not seriously harm another person. They had a grudge against someone, and I talked sense into that acquaintance to not murder or harm the individual in question. I felt I did good deeds, not for recognition or to show off. I literally helped prevent two people's downfall. Both parties involved are living normal, decent lives. They found joy and let old drama die out. All it took was for someone to listen and talk common sense. In fact, that came around too. Me, little did I know someone had a grudge against me and someone found out and spoke up for me. I was captivated that the person who had the grudge, I never did crap to them. I don't know why, they just wanted to hurt me. It's like, damn, come on. You don't gotta be an ass to people. Someone will find a reason to give you a hard time. At the end of day, I'm sure if I encounter the many people I've met, they would do their part, a small good gesture or deed toward me. And it has happened many times. I do appreciate the little goodness we all give to each other. However, at this state of mind, I am constantly on guard.
Get out and leave. This isn't life. It's not a fucking test. It is draining you of your life force.
My uncle has schizophrenia, unmedicated. He refuses. No one else in my family got it or showed signs. He lived with my grandma for a long time. Then the family pooled money and got him a little house pretty far out of the city. He hates trains, animals, and other people. Talks about how everyone is watching him. Talks about how he wants to die where he was born, so we have to bring his ashes to the exact spot. Anyways, he's like 70 now and no one else got it. My brother and I think maybe genetically our family is predisposed to getting it, but then the soft drugs like weed and alcohol really pushed it. I do have some anxiety though. Then again, I'm on /x/talking aliens and demons, so who fucking knows, eh?
Hey /x/, I'm a diagnosed paranoid schizophrenic, and I've had some creepy shit happen to me courtesy of my brain. I'll share some Greentext shit, and you're all welcome to ask questions and whatnot. B17. This is basically when it starts. Sitting in the room, main light off, smaller lamp on desk on, studying for finals for junior year. Suddenly I know that there's something at the window looking at me. Don't want to turn around. Sweat profusely. Stay stuck in a chair for an hour, eyes glued on the same section of text. Text says something about Jeb Stuart, the Civil War guy. Whatever's outside is infuriated that I'm reading about Jeb Stuart. Mom asks me to come to dinner, hear tapping at the window, get up and throw a mental apology at the window for reading about Stuart. 1 week later, do well on the history final. Teacher makes eye contact with me. He sent the thing outside to me so I could do well on the final, convinced that the teacher is watching me do homework for the rest of the year. A little spooky, yes, but this is before things got more and more unhinged and weird. I wasn't diagnosed and put on medication until I was in a shit-flinging, batshit insane mode and living on the streets when I was 25. That summer, things got weirder, though, and a bigger, overarching delusion started forming. That summer, start spending a lot of time outdoors. Lots of rabbits out at dawn. Spend time watching the rabbits. Slowly become convinced that they have human intelligence and are cataloging me. Briefly think it's my old history teacher. Soon throw this theory aside. Rabbits obviously think I'm a god because they give me a wide berth. Start to give mental sermons to the rabbits. Now I'm fairly certain I might have been saying them aloud. Rabbit gets hit by a car. Suddenly I get really concerned. Wandering around the neighborhood at all hours of the night. Start wandering in patterns because something's chasing me. Forget about rabbits altogether and think about the thing chasing me. During the day, I convince myself that this is a pretend game. During the night, I'm basically running around the streets. Tell mother I'm doing it for track. Become obsessed with numerology and counting for a bit. Return briefly to the rabbit thing, counting the rabbits. The thing chasing me and myself form a truce, and she leaves. Stop running around outside. Tell mother I'm not interested in track anymore. Start browsing online for creepy shit. Get really hung up on alternate dimensions and reincarnation. My name is Sid, therefore I am an incarnation of Siddhartha. Delusions of grandeur for the rest of the summer. Mother becomes mildly concerned. Still care enough about the real world to quell her by saying it's history homework. That night, tapping at my window. I figured that the tapping was from the she-beast who had been stalking me before. I sent mental notes to her. They were just chiming sounds and happy thoughts. I heard a horrific screeching sound back. To this day, I don't know if it was a car braking or just my head. I got in the car and spent the entire night at a diner. My Siddhartha Delusion turned into the only sane man delusion. I figured out that I was gifted with the power to see the real world as it is. The dust particles in the sunlight were photons. The weird knots in the trees were their eyes. The trees were watching me, but they were not on my side. I thought my little brother was telling the trees about me. I was still able to laugh it off a bit and live a normal life. I went to a party with some friends. Someone mentioned trees for some reason. I got in the car and left. I drove to the diner again. I was outside the diner. My history teacher was at the diner. I freaked out and went home and burned a half-assed drawing of Jeb Stuart. There was tapping on the window all night, followed by heavy breathing. I had a couple months of relative clarity with no delusions. I hung out with friends, read books, whatever. I started reading about mirrors and their properties online. One day I smashed every mirror in my house. My mother was pissed. Everyone was pissed. I told them it was for their own good. My friends were super druggies. They used weak acid and pot all the time, sometimes spice. I started smoking spice with frequency. I became terrified that my family was willing to take the skin off my bones. I literally seemed to be slipping apart. They were all watching a movie one night. They were all getting their mental forces together and ripping me apart from the inside. I started living in a tent outside the house. School started. I moved back into my bedroom. I had a time of relative clarity for the first couple of weeks. I started hearing voices for the first time. They told me about how the water fountains were poisonous. They said the janitors shoved carcasses in there. I started leaving strange messes for the janitors instead of going to class. I pissed in a bucket and put a can of cat food in it, etc. Eventually, I stopped before I got caught. I started isolating myself in favor of hypothetical conversations with friends. These versions of my friends became meaner and meaner. I started getting really self-conscious, and my self-esteem plummeted. I started going to the gym, working out obsessively. All the while, strange mantras started playing over in my head. And watch as I break this whole watermelon with my head. It's a textbook case of a urinary tract infection, Missy. Just peel off the dried syrup with a butter knife, Marcus. Useless things like that would play all at the same time and in different pitches. I often took to hitting the sides of my head in private. I blamed the bruises on the gym equipment. I was often tired and fatigued from working out. My body craved protein to build muscle. I started thinking I was a bear in a human's body. I was terrified all the time that my skin would fall off. I started having tactile hallucinations related to my body hair. Weird mantras were interlaced with roaring. I was still doing okay in school. I stopped showering and stopped cleaning my room. I slept on the floor. I needed to thicken my skin so the bear didn't come out. I started applying Rogaine to my back and chest. I was working out instead of going to school sometimes. The tapping at my window started. At this point, I had no friends, and I was just a sweaty, smelly mess. My mother had abandoned me in my bedroom for the most part. I started pressing my head against the wall at night. Voices said this would keep the bear in. I was literally salivating at my cat. Tapping at the window started up one night again. It was the classic SOS Morse code. I punched a hole through the window. I broke my hand. I told the tired emergency room worker that I thought it was a robber. My mother said nothing. I nailed wood over all the windows in my room. There was scratching outside. A year later, I just barely graduated high school. I moved to the basement of the house. I was smoking spice every day. I became obsessed with DMT. The spice was making things a lot worse. Visual hallucinations started kicking in, and auditory ones were in full force. I hadn't showered in about 4 months. I was still working out constantly. I was letting my teeth rot right out of my skull. There were dark shadows all over my room. The internet told me about shadow people. I tried to communicate with them. TV static and blips was all I got back. Sometimes it was so loud it vibrates the house and brought me to my knees. I resolved that DMT was the only way to communicate with them. My former friends were preventing me from getting it. I started sleeping outside again because the walls were projecting shadow people. I painted my room black so I couldn't see the shadows as well. I'm tired of the Greentext format, so I ended up contacting a guy who claimed to be an expert on the thing in the area. Of course, he wasn't very put off by my terrible appearance because he was a smelly hippie dude himself and probably thought that I was just expressing personal freedom and whatnot instead of being a profoundly mentally ill kid. At this point, I was still great at not acting crazy when I absolutely couldn't, a skill that would soon fade. I went to him and we talked for a long while, and he seemed very in tune with what I had to say. I left out the part about my wanting to delve into the world of the shadow people to talk with them. because I had enough introspective rationale left to see that it probably wasn't going to do me very well. I went into vague religious reasons and the guy hooked me up. I bought a vaporizer and threw it in there and inhaled the fumes. It only took about 2 breaths to get me going, and I think what I had could only be categorized as a bad trip. I don't remember all of it, but I was extremely scared, and shadow people were hissing TV static in my ears, and I sort of came to talking about dead waves. I'm not sure if what the guy gave me was actual DMT, but I pissed myself and was afraid to leave my room for days. I don't know, but after I did that, it got a lot worse. Doorknobs would try to bite me. The shadow people were dancing constantly on the walls of my room. The auditory hallucinations got so bad that I couldn't focus on one single thing. I stopped verbally communicating for a long time, but I only know this because my mother told me. The shadows were dancing on the walls and buzzing and making lights with themselves, and I was frantically posting online to get information. I purchased paint and started painting sigils and shit that I pulled out of my ass on the walls, and I had stacks of busted televisions in my room. My mother had frankly had enough with me and kicked me out soon after I refused to walk upright because of the shadow people. I can sort of empathize with her because having a muscled, smelly, mute son crawling around like a handicapped spider must have been bad.
Be renting a room. Get cutie from work to start coming over. Landlord is filling the rooms with the dregs of humanity. Pill popper who doesn't work, but somehow has money, gets this older chick on schizo meds to drink with him so he can get laid. She gets progressively weirder over the next few days. Be laying with my cutie, both half naked, watching some movie. Schizo barges in and proclaims this is not, in fact, the bathroom. Rage.jpg. Get the hell out of here, you stupid net negative. Looks at me like I'm an alien. Stand up and make aggressive Italian gestures. Cutie says in dumb girl voice, why was she so comfortable barging in here like that? Anger. Go on a yelling spree and get the landlord involved. It will never happen again. Go to leave to take cutie home, and landlord and schizo are lamenting the death of his cat. Sad.jpg. I come home and they say they gave it CPR, but it's wrapped in a rug. Move out the next day. Yeah, fuck living with those freaks.
I would like to share a paranormal story that happened to me and my 16-year-old brother 3 days ago. I'm 26. This is not role-playing, this is a true story. Okay, so my brother for like a year or so has been acting a little schizo, saying he was haunted by demons and voices and all this stuff, and that his friends were doing seances and whatever. I didn't believe him. I just thought he was mentally unstable and schizophrenic, but I never told him what I thought. I just sort of said, okay, sure. So 3 days ago, it was late at night, and my brother said he needed someone to drive him to the top of Mill Mountain in Roanoke City where we live, which on top of that mountain is a giant star pentagram structure in the picture. He said the voices in his head were telling him he had to go up there and that they would leave him alone if he did. So I took him, not because I believed him, but because I like going up there to hike and wanted to run around in the night. There have always been stories in the city that the mountain is haunted and the pentagram thing draws evil power there, and witches come to Roanoke to practice because it is a source of power. Or whatever. I'm a skeptical person. I don't really think too much of all that until I see it with my own eyes. So we were driving up to the top of the mountain when my brother said we needed to pull over because he was getting sick. A minute or so later, he said he was ready to continue, so I started the car, looked out my rearview mirror, and a white, muscular-looking figure with no face was slowly approaching the vehicle from out of the woods. So I gunned it. Wow, I'm actually shaking so much talking about this. I never do this. Teeth chattering too. Anyway, I'm brave, so we continued to the top. Shit got real, and I wanted to see more. It wasn't yet conclusive in my mind. We went out in the woods behind the star. My brother saw a spot where a bunch of fallen trees had fallen in the shape of an octagon, forming a circle of sorts. He said we need to sit there and try to get rid of the demons or whatever. So we sat there for a few minutes, and nothing was happening, so internally I thought, I will just think negative thoughts like, Fuck you demons, show yourselves, you pieces of shit. If you want us to know you're real, you better prove it. Shit like that. Seconds after doing this, my brother said the negative energy grew a lot and then he puked randomly and felt really sick and said they're attacking him. I thought, yeah, right, but played along so as not to offend him. Then we both noticed at the same time. Figures in the woods, shadow people, and footsteps through the leaves. They were all spying on us from behind the trees. The footsteps would get closer and closer, but nothing in sight was making them. My brother said we need to run, so we ran all the way back to the star where some people were, and got in the car and were going to leave, but when I started the car, it started, but it wouldn't change gears, and the car was vibrating and making clunky sounds. So we shut it off and gathered our bravery back, and headed out to some trails in front of the star this time. So we wandered those trails for a while and nothing was happening. I grabbed a log that I carried with me as a club now. My brother said that wouldn't do anything against them, but I was going to take my chances. So we made some jokes and had some fun, when suddenly out of nowhere, further up the trail, something that looked like a bubble of warped space just appeared, completely black on the inside, but all the light surrounding it was just bending around. As soon as it appeared, it was already moving towards us at human running speed. I raised my wooden club, but a twig protruding out from it hit me in the face and scratched me pretty good. The big bubble thing came 15 feet down the trail before disappearing between two saplings on each side of the trail. My brother had said before that the trees on both sides of the trail were like passing through a portal. So we ran back to the car. My brother said it was time to go. Only 1 minute after the ball incident, we were in the car. 15 feet from the car, our mom called. And this is the best part. She was like, "Can you hear me now? Hello?" And my brother said, "What do you mean? I can hear you." She said, "I'm calling you back because you couldn't hear me." And we told her we never called her. She thought we were joking. We just told her no, we are serious. Then she told us that she called us 1 minute ago, and we answered, and my brother said, "Hello?" But then kept repeating oddly the same phrase, "I can't hear you," every time she would try to talk into the phone. We never answered that call. It was in her call log, but not ours. When we got home, we showed her that, and it took a while to convince her we weren't joking. Also, after she finished talking to us, her phone screen began flashing and acting strange. I believe my brother now. That was some crazy supernatural shit. So that is the overview, but here are some more details. After we got back to the car, 1 minute after the black bubble of warped space thing disappeared, I described what I saw to my brother. He said he saw the same thing, but instead of only being able to see just blackness in the core of the bubble, he said that he saw a giant beast-like shadow creature running towards us in the core of the bubble. He said that I had only seen the aura of the demon, and that he was more in tune and could see the demon itself. Does anyone have any input on what this all means? What is going on with my brother? What are these things? Demons? Also, I have only had 2 paranormal experiences before this. This is the 3rd time in my life. I too have seen shadow people, and not some corner of the eye bullshit, straight on 100% visible in your face shadow people. I only saw them at one of my old friends' houses, nowhere else. I saw them dozens of times. But the final and most intense time was when I turned right after entering the hallway there, and a shadow person was in my face only 1 foot away or so. It had red eyes and spoke to me. But the talking was so fast I couldn't understand. I screamed and it ran down the hall and jumped through the ceiling. My second experience, me and 5 other people who are my friends and family, were coming down the mountain after hiking to the top of the star, and it was becoming nighttime. We began hearing footsteps, but nothing was there. Then out of nowhere I saw a white human-shaped figure, but about 7 foot tall, running through the woods at superhuman speeds, without making any sound, hitting any trees or tripping in the darkness. I yelled, "What the fuck is that?" Everyone then saw it, and we began running. It was coming at us. We were near the bottom already, but by the time we made it to the van, there were 2 of the creatures, one on each side of the trail, both chasing us. We jumped in the van faster than you have ever seen 5 people get in a van. And we were out of there. Basically, that mountain is haunted. My brother was with us when that happened as well.
I'm not saying the following to be condescending. My uncle had, let's say, head-mind-brain troubles since he was 13. He saw things, he talked to things, things talked to him, etc. He is now 47, so then MRIs were not available then in my country, and most doctors never thought anything of it except that he had a psychological condition. Turns out in 1994 he had a brain MRI scan, and there was a growth in a certain part of the brain bordering on the optical nerve. They operated, didn't remove all of it, but most of it. He's never had any experience of the sort since. I'm saying this because growth like that is hereditary, and since both you and your brother have seen things, maybe you should get checked out. Again, I'm not saying what you saw was false or a hallucination, but there is that possibility. I myself believe in the paranormal, and that there are things that we cannot perceive.
Tell your brother to leave that shit immediately. It is not the enlightenment or power or whatever that he's seeking. It will only lead to his detriment. Tell him that if he keeps going like this, it's going to come back to hit him really hard in probably about a year. And it's incredibly irresponsible to go to such an extent that he draws that much attention from other entities like that. If he does want to keep going, at least tell him to practice more protective stuff, since that has at least the chance of abating some potential effects.
A lot of this /x/shit is here to induce psychosis in vulnerable truth seekers. I've experienced absolutely profound synchronicities and been driven nearly to end myself chasing them. Just keep it chill and it should be fine to explore, but fear can distort the signal and send it spiraling out of control after feeding back for a while. When I tried to start Red Pill Revolution in March 2016, I was informed that the revolution was already underway and that all I had to do was join guided liberation meditations. Little did I know I was getting sucked into a cult and effectively neutralized. On the one hand, I was manifesting some pretty cool stuff, but on the other, I was filling my head with alien conspiracy disinfo. Eventually, I abandoned my real-life revolution activities in favor of meditation, plant-based dieting, and paying most of my time and attention to guru charlatans. I adopted the Dharma and cold turkeyed all my vices. The karmic whiplash was palpable. Hearing personalized messages via satellite and FM radio was wild. The day I set out to escape Earth, I heard ground control to Major Tom on the radio, which was basically my Syrian star family establishing contact, relaying rendezvous coordinates. Hot-blooded by foreigner, get rid of you-know-who. Secret rendezvous meant ditching my phone and wallet so as to not be trackable while escaping through the scalar fence I learned about from Cobra and PFC and all this weaponized New Age Blue Beans disinfo. There's little doubt I was targeted and nearly Clintoned after trying to start a pay-it-forward campaign and loudly denouncing central banking while giving away all my money in a bank. Feeling compelled to take a leap of faith into a frozen lake hoping to get beamed up was not natural. It's a combination of passive, weaponized disinformation and voice-to-skull technology polluting natural synchronicity. Pretty sure I was a test run for the big impending mother of all false flags. I couldn't not walk towards the ice cliff and jump off. Something unnatural compelled me. I was so scared and desperate to escape, knowing I knew too much and that it was either the Skyway or a black site. Funny thing is, after meditating and practicing my cold thermogenesis naked on a sheet of ice in Georgian Bay for an indeterminate amount of time, everything changed. I knew that I'd almost been killed and needed to survive. I had all this manifestation power all of a sudden. I knew I needed to climb up the 10 to 12 foot jagged, sharp ice cliff, so I started scanning the coastline for somewhere to climb up. About 150 meters from where I jumped, I found a U-shaped outcropping to wedge myself between. I lacerated my entire body climbing up and out, particularly my feet, knees, and torso. After running a couple of 100 meters back to the highway, the first car conveniently stopped for my bleeding naked ass. I clearly remember consciously manifesting an opportunity to meet and properly thank this woman who stopped and called the ambulance for me, cranked the heat, and even had a solar blanket for my hypothermic ass. I told my dad in the general hospital while being treated for hypothermia and frostbite that my phone was gone, but that someone would find my wallet for sure. He thought nothing of it until the police contacted them a month later while I was still institutionalized and told him that a road crew found my wallet that had been tossed out of a car on a rural road in the middle of nowhere. Score one for me. When I started telling Lisa, one of the cute young ladies I met in the mental hospital, this whole story, she was like, "Oh, that was my aunt who stopped and called the ambulance. She'll be visiting next week. Wish 2 granted. I knew there was some shit going on at this point. Lisa was 19 and married as a Jehovah's Witness, but also crazy just like me. We committed adultery in the hospital together before she left. Forgot to mention Dylan, who happened to arrive at the mental ward an hour ahead of me. He's one of the dudes who saw me get kicked out of the bank for giving away money. He took $40 from me gladly while some other people tried to ignore my crazy ass waving money in their faces. Was cool to catch that rebound. I genuinely believed I was the second coming for a while. All the girls were magnetically attracted to my false messiah confidence. A lot of the people in there were convinced that I was maybe not some incarnate, but definitely something else. Once the antipsychotics kicked in, I ordered pizza nearly every day for the floor. 55 days I was stuck in there until I capitulated. What a shit show. If you ever do get your consciousness shrinked, don't fight them and tell them that they're brainwashed puppets of the elite. Don't refuse meds. Just pretend to take them. Work on deprogramming the psyops and get on a carnivorous diet. Only sheeple can believe such new age bullshit. The dumb things I used to buy into are now appalling to my wolf brain. TLDR/X/tier psyops and vegan cultism induced psychosis and nearly killed me. If I'm not a targeted individual, nobody is. It's mostly blanket solutions like simple conspiracy theories and metaphysical solipsistic disinfo at play here. You gotta get reasonably high up the threat matrix before you get hard focused. Nobody believes me when I say carnivory is curing my bipolar disorder. I get censored when carna posting on 4chan. Probably gonna leave this site forever, as it pains me to see plant-based dieting propaganda leading people down the same path that almost killed me while I'm powerless to dissuade people because of censorship.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.